All right. We're recording now. Hey, y'all. Today we are bringing a collaborative conversation. I'm Dr. Vermina, and this is... No? Okay.
Eleanor Dooley. I'm a holistic hormone specialist. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me? Yes, no?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We'll rewind that. I can edit
Yes.
that out
Yes.
later. Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Romina here with Eleanor. We are here bringing y'all a very interesting discussion together about women hormones. Mostly we'll talk about the hormones, the myths that are being debunked here. And of course, we'll see what information we can talk about. I think it's going to be great. How's it going?
It's going good, Ramina. I'm happy to be here. I love sharing information and sharing the educations that you and I both have to share and to empower women to understand their bodies better so that they don't feel that they're not equipped to make decisions about their bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a good point to start with, right? There's so much information out there that women are just getting overwhelmed. And I think if you just compare just the conventional treatment versus what else there is out there, if you go for a conventional workup or checkup about hormones, say you're not even menopausal, you're just like a normal childbearing age, or even if you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, whatever age you're at, I feel like women in general in traditional medicine get overlooked and told you're fine. It's just a part of aging. You're going to go through menopause. It's just something you deal with. But that's not true, right? What do you think?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it starts well beyond menstruation years. When we're teenagers and we're, getting our first periods, we're kind of set up for it to be awful. We're told that it's gonna suck, and you have to put up with it. And then the only time you have to really pay attention is if you want to have a baby, and then you can kind of pay attention and then forget about it. And I think it does women a tremendous disservice to not understand the value in understanding the cycle, the 28 days or the 4 weeks that our bodies cyclically go through, and the assets that each of those pieces inside that cycle give us. And so when we talk about menopause, it's the same narrative that it's going to suck for everybody. You're going to gain weight no matter what you do. And, here's your, SOS kit. And it's, a couple medications and some wine, right? And, I keep telling people that's not my plan for menopause. Mm-hmm. My plan is not to just, white knuckle it and put up with whatever comes my way. I'm actually actively preparing to have a balanced, normal transition.
Absolutely. And I want to dig in a little bit on that. When in general, people just think the only thing you could do is just hormone replacement, but there's not. It really goes back into lifestyle, right? I mean, and just like you said, it starts when you're pretty much a teenager, even before, and goes into menopause. So what you put into your body, the way you sleep, your stress levels, all that impacts everything that you do.
Yeah.
Right?
And even more... Go ahead.
Oh, no, right. And I was just going to say that you don't have to jump straight to feeling, accepting the feeling that you're doomed in every aspect, whether it's PMS, whether it's perimenopause and postmenopause. There are things that you could do, and that's beautiful. We just need to bring that out there. And I think we should definitely talk about that. And instead of, just pushing women aside.
Yeah. And to be honest, that's one of the pillars that opened my practice. I work specifically with women, not just with sex hormones, but we're talking about cortisol, we're talking about adrenals, thyroid hormones, and also gut hormones. So I focus specifically on the root of the imbalance. And for a lot of people, that term gets thrown around, root cause. But really what is happening in day to day is that our bodies are sponges for toxicity. And in all respects, and from the shampoo that you use to the hand cream to the hand sanitizer that you probably use in your hospital, all of these things get absorbed into our bodies, and it's our liver's responsibility to get them out. And when it gets overloaded, things start going wonky. And that wonkiness is where we tend to kind of blame our bodies. Something's wrong. Something, my body's different. And people have different symptoms, and treating the symptom is not going to move the needle in your healing. And I'm hoping culturally, generationally, that we are becoming a lot more aware that those simple fixes are just not cutting it anymore.
Absolutely. And I too like to focus on root cause, not putting a bandage approach to everything. And I think we could take that a little deeper. So people that aren't familiar with what exactly are hormones and how it affects I think we should talk about the metabolism, and it goes to show how the lifestyle components are affecting it. And those are low-hanging fruits that we can adjust. So we know hormones, right? You named a few. We have the ones that are male and female hormones that we know about, that we hear about: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. But there's also the other hormones like the stress cortisol, and then there's thyroid, there's insulin, glucose. All those play a role. And how that is impacted by the rest of your body. If you look at how, say, metabolism, right? That's the way that your body breaks down certain molecules or chemical messengers or things that you ingest, but also just in general, like the hormones. So if you think about that, yes, you do have, you named a key component of the key organ, the liver, but also the GI tract. The gut is so important because that is a whole circle. If your gut is off, and think about it, right? By the time you are probably in your 20s, you've probably been exposed to steroids, antibiotics. So that just throws off your microbiome and it's just inflamed. So you're not absorbing not only the food and the vital building blocks like the vitamins, the nutrients that are needed to break down all the progesterone, estrogen, and the remainder of the hormones. So if your gut is off and you're not cycling through the hormones, then yes, you're going to be off. That's one, right? And I think this is where you could just go into just put in certain vitamins like B vitamins. That's so commonly, people are just not able to optimize their range of optimizing the nutrition. So if you don't have the building blocks, then you're not going to have the hormones, and then you'll have all those symptoms. So I feel like that's also important. You got to clean up the gut, make sure everything's metabolizing, make sure you have the building blocks, the components. And we should talk about that, like what our favorite vitamins and supplements are. And once you optimize the lifestyle and you're still not getting better, then yes, I believe there is a space for possibly bioidentical hormones. And we'll talk about the difference, the bioidentical hormones. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on what's your favorite go-to vitamins and supplements before you dig into everything else, since we're talking about the building blocks.
Yeah, with everybody that comes in my office, the very first session that we go through is I call it a nutritional background, where I get to deep dive into what medications that you've been on in the past, what you're on now, how they're working, trying to get a real sense of the health history of the gut, the microbiome, because my suggestions are really not blanketed for every person, but every person can get started on cellular detox. So my biggest thing is, are you taking something that supports the liver and the kidneys? And my favorite go-to for that is something called KL, or kidney liver support. And that's that's Core. Most of my products that I recommend are from Cellcore because their line is very complete. So generally when people come in here with a laundry list of things that they're on, I can really simplify the list and kind of shrink it down, because a lot of the Cellcore products have combination things in them. So it kind of helps to really streamline what's going on, because so many people they're just taking a vitamin because they think they need a vitamin, and or a probiotic. And I said, well,
Yeah.
what kind of probiotic? Where did you get it? Where did you hear about it? And why are you taking it? Because you might be taking something that is already overgrown, and then you're feeding it when we need to look at a different angle. Similarly with estrogen, I had a woman come in and she was taking DIM because she read on Instagram the symptoms of estrogen dominance, and she said, well, I've got a lot of those. I've got the breast tenderness and the headaches and the PMS pains, and so I'm taking DIM. Well, I actually did a Dutch test on her, and her estrogen came back in the menopausal range. So she was actually depleting whatever estrogen that she actually had in circulation. And so, of course, she was getting the symptoms. So, making choices without talking to somebody like me and you, or just even really getting a grasp of how does this fit into the big picture, I think it's really, really beneficial for women, because there are really no blanket supplements that I'm like, every woman should be taking this or that, because we have come from such vast histories of digestion and gut health, and even culturally in our DNA, things are just so different for each person. So that's kind of how I feel about that. What about you?
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And it just goes to show how everyone is unique, and this is a personalized approach. So I love the Dutch test too. And so people that aren't familiar with Dutch test, if you go get regular blood work, and I'm saying regular in a conventional setting, you're getting such a small snippet of what your hormones are doing. But what a Dutch test, so if you go see an advanced practitioner, it will break down actual different components of your estrogen, progesterone, along with the building blocks that are missing, your detox metabolism. All those things are actually broken down so you could target the pathway. Are you having too much of the beneficial estrogen or not? Are you getting the symptoms that are related? So it tells you a bigger picture and whatever you're depleted in, so you could actually prescribe and make the approaches with lifestyle and adjustments. And it's just a better targeted approach, and people do much better. I mean, and that's the same thing. Like, yes, there are certain vitamins that I see that most women are depleted in. Not saying this is for everyone, but definitely like methylated B vitamins. Those are big. And so that goes into, if you're not detoxing, your liver can't manage things, methylated forms are going to go a long way. B vitamins, right? I would say even in general, in population, like vitamin D levels are also low. So that's right? Like vitamin D so much. Then of course, like the gut
magnesium.
Magnesium, yes, magnesium too. So, I mean, there's commonalities that are probably going to be missing. And so before you jump to just throwing hormone replacement, there's so much you could do. So yes, that's like the way you eat. So cruciferous vegetables, I love that, like broccoli and like Brussels sprouts, right? Like those help the detox pathways. So those components, then adding in like proper sleep, right? We know if you're also stressed, your stress hormone, the cortisol, is going to go up, and that wrecks every single pathway, right? That's going to like wreck everything if you're constant stressed, fight or flight. But if you do things that pull off the good happy hormones like the oxytocin and, all the good hormones, that brings down that cortisol. So naturally, you can adjust your hormones through that way too. Again, lifestyle and mind, body, spirit. And then, there's just so much that we can capitalize on that. That's where, the holistic functional approach shines, I think. And there's good outcomes,
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think I don't know if it's brainwashed or we've just been conditioned that your body can't do it alone. So you need all of these things. And, we need to get back to the original, think of 200 years ago, there really wasn't medications. There really was maybe a few surgeries for lighting. Of course, technology, I mean, I love it as much as the next person, but I think we've kind of overcompensated for allowing our bodies to resist viruses and bacteria and to heal. When the body gets a fever, it's a sign that it's working really, really hard and you need to rest, right? It's a signal to tell you to do something, not to go medically change it and
Yeah,
deny your body that healing pathway. And I think we've gotten really far away from that in such a way that what you and I do is almost revolutionary again.
yeah.
Like we're coming out the other side. And it does make me happy when I see a lot of functional practitioners that we speak the same languages, we have things in common, because I think I'm hoping it's changing, the demographic of the people that we serve, and
Oh,
it's opening the
absolutely.
doors and eyes and ears of so many women that might have felt marginalized for years, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Absolutely. In traditional aspects, in the traditional doctor's office, women are just dismissed. And I get so many of my clients, and these are educated, some are physicians too, because they see the value of approaching it in a functional aspect with data, but also going back to lifestyle. And I think that's beautiful because the more educated people are, they are seeking out our route, our approach, and it's really combining the best of Eastern and Western medicine, right? And that's just an
Yeah.
amazing paradigm shift. You know, I kind of wanted to talk about that one study we just briefly talked about, and I'm not going to name all of them specifically because I'm sure it's been like all over the media. But I just, I always get women questioning this too, and I'm sure you do too. I would love to hear your thoughts, but there's such a misconception because of this one study that came out. It was a large study, but it was flawed because the idea that sticks around is what came about it was this rhetoric that hormone replacement therapy causes cancer. But the problem was the study only looked at postmenopausal women using Provera and Premarin. So for people that don't know what that is, that's basically hormone that comes from a horse. So that's not bioidentical. If you use bioidentical hormones, meaning those that match your own body, there's going to be a slight risk, but it's just over exaggerated to the extent where it scared everyone. And I think that's important to, of course, and that's the individualized approach as well. Like, is it appropriate for you, after you do all the lifestyle components that we just discussed? There's so many options. But if you need it, and then you really want to look at something like the Dutch test to see what else you could do to minimize your risk and maximize the benefits, so you do feel good. And the reason why I say that, because yes, that study really was blown out of proportion. There is a subset, or actually a large population, and this is looking at women that are at least perimenopausal. I'm talking about into the 30s, where if you start doing these things, it sets you up to not be so miserable during PMS, number one. Number two, postmenopausal, right? So you're putting more money in your bank so you don't have to feel miserable. And why that's important is not only feeling wise, but we talked about all the benefits, right? If in the right population, it decreases your cardiovascular risk factor. It helps your bones, so you avoid osteoporosis, your mood, brain fog. I mean, there's just so many benefits in the right population that will outweigh the risks. And I think it's important that we give out the right information. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's what our understandings, our opinions, who we vote for, all of this, it needs to stem in the truth and in the authenticity. And I think the rumor mill gets going, and then, somebody is on a mission. And so I try to really stay away from anything that isn't founded in truth. And if you can't give me the source that I can go and look up and decide for myself if that study's relevant, then I don't really pay it all that much mind, because we've got bigger fish to fry.
Exactly.
Really. But to your point, yes, there is a place for bioidentical hormones for women that truly have tried to have their when their ovaries go offline or they retire, I like to say, it becomes the job of the adrenals to take on that making of estrogen. And for the majority of women, their adrenals are already completely tapped out making cortisol. So if we can find ways to reduce the need for cortisol in your life, which is gut health, removing toxins from the body, things that we've talked about, more nutrients in the diet, things that aren't going to completely derail your lifestyle, but things are actually really easy asks, like switching from candles to essential oils, right? That's not a big deal to ask somebody to do, but if that changes how much cortisol your body needs, you're going to want to do those things. And most people I talk to want to be healthier. So doing little things like that, if we can reduce the need for cortisol, we're gonna increase metabolic health, we're gonna reduce metabolic disease, and that's gonna take the lean off of the adrenals, which is really at the core of all of this sex hormone talk. Even though we think it's, it's just periods and fertility and libidos, it's actually all really interconnected. And, so if women would have tried adrenal supported so it can make a go to the bioidentical, but we have to explore these avenues before we jump to something that is outside of our body's control. So that's what I like to offer women and give them that alternative, that choice that they didn't really know that they had.
Absolutely. And I kind of want to highlight also the things that cause your body inflammation and more stress, right? The standard American diet, the SAD diet, ultra processed foods, even that has the same response of causing stress externally and then internally. So even the changes of diet goes a long way. There was a study that looked at kids' breakfast, right? A population had high protein, right? Protein goes a long way when you're talking about hormones, protein and good fat. So they had eggs and, a good balance, no processed carbs. But the other population had oatmeal. You'd think that oatmeal in a packet may be good, but it's actually filled with sugar and it causes the same stress response. So even something simple by being cognizant of what you put into your body goes a long way too. And these, again, aren't modalities that's going to cost too much of time or stress. It actually is beneficial. So, there's just so many options, and I'm glad we can actually bring this information forward to talk about so women don't feel dismissed.
Yeah.
Well, Eleanor,
right.
This has
and
been...
especially those women. Yeah.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say we're at the 20-minute mark.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, you can wrap it up. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You were about to say something. Go ahead.
I was going to say, especially the women that are mothers, they're looking at more than just their own health. And so, like you said, a simple swap like homemade oatmeal versus the packets, really, we're pushing that information forward on a generational, mark as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Eleanor, I just enjoy talking to you and collaborating, having wonderful conversations. We are having a few more series about, more hormones, but a little different. So stay tuned. If you want more information, how to reach out to us, look at the link below. Have a great rest of the day,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.